Sadhu,
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 sadhu. Dear Dharma friends, today also we have the opportunity to learn another beautiful sutta by the Buddha. So this opportunity to listen and to learn the teachings of a Buddha is very rare. And it is rare in the sense also that not only the opportunity is rare to actually hear the true teachings of the Buddha. That is extremely rare. Because we are lucky as Sri Lankans. In Sri Lanka, the true Dhamma was preserved by the Arahants, the Sri Lankan Arahants. And because of their commitment to the practice, also preserving the teachings of the Buddha, today we have this great opportunity to learn the teachings of the Buddha just the way Buddha taught us. There is an incident when, say, after the Buddha attained Parinibbana, a young person by the name Subba came to Venerable Ananda Thero and asked Venerable Ananda, what did the Buddha teach? What did he talk about again and again? What was his most frequent admonishment? Then Venerable Ananda Swayamasa replied, what the Buddha taught was, he taught us again and again of the noble virtue. That's what he taught us. And also he taught us about the noble concentration, samadhi. And he taught us about the noble wisdom. And the Venerable Ananda Swayamasa, he goes on to describe how Buddha taught the virtue, the concentration, and the wisdom. So he never tells anything else other than what the Buddha taught. Just the way Buddha had taught the teachings of the teachings, he told the same thing to the Subba, the young person. And the Subba was able to listen carefully, understand, and gain confidence in the teachings of the Buddha. So in the same way, now you have the opportunity to learn the teachings of the Buddha just the way Buddha taught. Even the sutta that we are going to discuss today and also before, we learned two suttas. What are they? Do you remember? We learned the Vammika Sutta, just as the Buddha taught us. Then we learned the Salayatana Vibhanga Sutta. So by learning and trying to understand these suttas, you gain confidence in the teachings of the Buddha. That's what happens. You gain in confidence. Your faith, your saddha towards the Buddha develops gradually. It only happens if you listen mindfully. That has to be there, because this learning Dhamma, the listening to Dhamma, it's a skill that you have to practice. It's a skill. It's not something that comes naturally. To have your focus, to keep your focus, to have unwavering focus, like for say 1 hour, 1 hour, 30 minutes, it's not something you practice daily. But it is something you can develop. It's a skill that you can develop. It is something you have to develop if you want to make something of the teachings of the Buddha, if you want to reap the benefits of the teachings of the Buddha. Or else this will be in vain, because you have to listen mindfully, focus, and try to understand by contemplating with wisdom, then gradually your confidence in the Buddha will grow. I recall myself an incident. Once a foreigner from South Africa, a businessman, a very busy person, came to Sri Lanka. Okay, so he had given up all his work that he was doing, whatever business, the things he was doing, and he came here to learn the teachings of the Buddha. So I was fortunate enough to, I got the opportunity to actually teach him the Dhamma, and I did so for several days. And just about when he was about to leave, say he's leaving tomorrow, today he tells me, Bhante, I want to learn Paticca I want to learn dependent origination. I said, look, it's a deep teaching of the Buddha. It's not something you can grasp within one day. But he said, no, Bhante, I am very eager to learn this profound teaching of the Buddha. Please teach me. So he was so very eager to learn this Dhamma and to actually learn of Paticca. So we had only one day. So after the morning dana, we began. And we only stopped for the noon dana. Straight away for 10 hours until late at night, I taught him dependent origination. And you wouldn't believe this person seated on a cushion, a foreigner, with so much focus. He listened without a yawn, without squirming. He just sat there and he listened. And it was clear not only he listened, he grasped the content that was taught. Because midway he will excuse and say, Bhante, I have a question. I would like to clarify this point. And from the question he pauses, you see that he have understood the content. He have grasped the content and he asks a wise question. So imagine doing that like for 10 hours on straight away. We did this without stopping, without breaks. And I was not tired. He was not tired. It was like a meditation sessions. And he think of his focus, his mindfulness to be there. You know how it is difficult to keep focus for 1 hour and 1 hour and 30 minutes or 2 hours maybe. But he had that capacity. He loved the Dhamma. And that is going to help him one day in the samsara, surely, to gain the benefits of the Dhamma and to realize the Dhamma, realize dependent origination. So you have to understand it is a skill that we have to develop. This is a very rare opportunity we have got, because we listen to the Dhamma maybe often, we don't feel the rarity of it. But the Buddhas, very rarely they arise in the world. And our life as to be born as a human, it's even more rare. Extremely rare circumstances we have come across. So we have to understand this, and we have to practice listening to the Dhamma, and we have to practice contemplating according to the Dhamma, and then gradually we will grow in confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So you shouldn't give up saying this is difficult to understand, I can't focus. That is why I encourage that every participant should turn on their cameras. So then you are more focused, more attentive to what is going on. And also it is a huge respect to the Dhamma and also the Sangha. And of course the Buddha. Buddha, because he considered Dhamma to be his teacher. Buddha is the one who paid the utmost respect to the teachings of the Buddha. What we learn is the wisdom of the Buddha, his realization, and his commitment throughout the samsara as a bodhisattva to realize this Dhamma. It is unsurpassed. So all we have to do here is to sit and listen. So out of respect to the teachings of the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, you should turn on your cameras and set your time aside, and you have to focus and be attentive. Then you will understand gradually. Then you will grow in confidence. And that is going to help you. That is going to be you for your welfare and happiness in this life, in this next life, and also lives to come in this sansaric journey, until you realize the Dhamma and put an end to this woeful cycle of rebirth. So today also we are going to learn a beautiful sutta. This is also in the middle end discourse, the Majjhima Nikaya, and the name of this sutta is Sekha Sutta. Sekha means the trainee. Aseka means the one who has fulfilled the training. Who is Aseka? The Arahants.
Arahant.
Arahants are the Aseka. They have completed the training. They have fulfilled the training. And they have eradicated all the defilements and become Arahant. Okay? So it is this Sekha Sutta we are going to learn. All other disciples are Aseka. So today we are learning of the Aseka means the Arahant. So Seka means the trainings. Okay. So we are going to learn the way, the practice of the training. So basically what we are going to learn is what we are supposed to do if you want to realize the teachings of the Buddha. So this is the practice of the trainee disciple. So on one occasion, the Buddha, the Blessed One, he was living in the Sakyan country of Kapilavatthu, in the Negroes Park. That was where Buddha was dwelling at that moment. And the Kapilavatthu, the princes, the Sakyans of Kapilavatthu, okay, they had built a huge assembly hall. And they wanted Buddha to be the first person to actually use this, Buddha and Sangha. They want to, Blessed One to be the first one to use it. So they thought if Buddha was the first one to use this, it will actually help us. It will be for the welfare and happiness of our law, for our welfare and happiness for a long time. It would be blessing for us if the Buddha was the first person to use it. Imagine you built a huge hall, a big place, and Buddha was still alive. As a disciple of the Buddha, wouldn't you like for him to be the first person to come there and use it actually? Of course, it's a great blessing. So the Sakyans, they thought the same way, and they went to the Buddha, paid homage to the Buddha, paid their respect, and invited the Buddha, saying, Buddha, we built this huge assembly hall, a newly built hall, and we would like you to be the first person to actually use it. And in this way, they invited the Buddha. So the way of the Buddha is quite different to what we would envision. The Buddhas, they like seclusion. They don't talk much. When they do talk, it is only the Dhamma. So in instances where the Buddha accepts certain things, he accepts in silence. Being silent when the request is made for dana or whatever other things by the lay people, if the Buddha remains silent, it means it constitutes consent. So here the Blessed One consents with silence. And they know by the silence that Buddha consented. So they got up from their seats, left the place after paying again homage to the Buddha. They went to the assembly hall and prepared it for the Buddha and Sangha to come, and they put seats, they prepared seats, they covered it completely with coverings, and they put a huge ball of water in front of the assembly hall, a vessel that contains water, so that the Buddha and the Sangha could wash their feet, because in the time of the Buddha, there were no carpeted roads. And the Buddha and the Sangha always, they traveled on foot. So it's very dusty. And your foot gets dirty. So when you enter, it may be it a house or any place, there is always in front of the building, a hall or house or whatever the building is, a water bowl is kept to wash your feet. So they prepared all this, and they also lit some oil lamps. So from that it is clear this is something that is happening in the evening time, because in that time of the Buddha there was no electricity. So they lit some oil lamps and prepared the hall. So then Buddha, along with the entourage of Sangha monks, bhikkhus, came to the hall when the time was right. And Buddha, first there was a pillar in front of the hall. So after he washed his feet and entered the hall and sat down by the central pillar facing the east. And bhikkhus also washed their feet, entered the hall, and they sat behind the Buddha, also facing the east. So the Sangha was sitting behind the Buddha by the western wall facing the east. And the Sakyas then entered, washed their feet themselves, and entered the hall and sat down by the eastern wall facing the west, with the Blessed One in front of them. So the Sakyas, they are facing the Blessed One, and also the Sangha, who are behind the Buddha by the western wall. So imagine this, how they are seated now. Okay. Then what happens? Then the Buddha teaches them the Dhamma. For hours on, he would teach them the Dhamma. And when it was way into the night time, he tells Venerable Ananda, speak to the Sakyas of Kapilavatthu about the disciple in higher training who has entered upon the way. I have to rest my back. So Buddha wanted to rest for a while, and he said, Ananda, please teach the Sakyas how the disciples of the Buddha train in the Noble Eightfold Path. The way the disciples train, teach them, said the Buddha. I will rest for a while. And having said so, the Buddhas we know and the monks also, they would, when they sleep or when they rest, in this case, they lay down in the lion's pose. That is, Buddha laid down on his right side in the lion's pose with one foot overlapping the other, mindful and fully aware. And he's not actually sleeping, he's just resting. Okay? Then Venerable Ananda addresses the Sakyas. So in front of the group of Sakyas, there was Mahanama. So his focus is now normally when there is a group of people, the prominent person is addressed first. Whoever the chief among the group is addressed when teaching a sutta or any discussion, that is the norm. Even in time of the Buddha, you address the chief person, but it means to the whole group. That's how it is. So so this Mahanama Shaki, he was the chief and he was in front. And therefore, Venerable Ananda Thero addresses the Mahanama Sakya. Says, Mahanama, here a noble disciple is possessed of virtue, guards the doors of his sense faculties, is moderate in eating, and devoted to wakefulness. And he possesses 7 good qualities. And he is one who obtains at will, without trouble or difficulty, the 4 jhanas that constitute the higher mind and provide a pleasant abiding here and now. So, first of all, now understand this Dhamma is taught to lay people, just like yourself. And this Dhamma is deep teachings of the Buddha. But these lay people, they are willing to listen. And when you listen, what happens? Your confidence grows. Say, it is difficult to put these things into practice. Maybe you find it difficult. But still you should have faith, okay, in the time of the Buddha, The lay people were able to practice Dhamma. The monks practiced this Dhamma and they reap the benefits. So then you would also gain confidence. Of course, these teachings of the Buddha are true. And if I also practice, there are the results. Then you arouse effort to somehow grasp the meaning of these teachings and to actually put these things to practice. So you should not give up. You should gain confidence and try to practice this with patience. So it takes a lot of patience and time. It is not something that happens overnight because here there is no a self, but a thing you should do, a process that you should follow. It is a methodical process that takes time, a lot of patience and commitment. If you do the right things for a prolonged period of time, gradually there will be the results. All you have to do is focus on what you have to do, and then you will reap the benefits. And now each of these aspects is going to be explained by Venerable Ananda. So the first aspect, how is the noble disciple possessed of virtue? And in this sutta, with regard to now this thing, this is taught about the training of the monks. Okay, specifically of the monks, how a monk trains in the Noble Eightfold Path, but it's the same. The same is applicable to the lay people. And here it is Patimokka Sangvara Sanguto Viharati. Patimokka means the monastic code that is practiced by the monks, the bhikkhus, the discipline of the Sangha. So here a normal disciple is virtuous, means he dwells restrained with the restraints of the Patimokka. That is the precepts a higher ordained monk keeps. He is then, because he is living and abiding by these precepts, he is perfect in conduct and resort. And seeing fear in the slightest fault, he trains by undertaking the training of the precepts. So this is the virtue, this is how a monk, a bhikkhu, practice virtue, the Patimokka we say. So this is like, in this way, in this sutta, it is taught to the lay people how a monk practices the Noble Eightfold Path, how the monk protects the precepts. Then by listening to this, they grew in confidence and faith toward the Buddha, Dhamma, and also Sangha. And they also try to keep the 5 precepts, because in the case of the bhikkhus, there are many precepts they should keep. It is not the same as for a layperson. So in with regard to virtue, it is comprised of 3 tenets of the Noble Path: right speech, right action, right livelihood. These 3 things comprises virtue. Okay, so what is right speech? That you know. You are abstaining from false speech. You are abstaining from divisive speech. You are abstaining from harsh speech, and you abstain from idle chatter. So that is right speech. Even for a monk or a lay person, that is right speech. That is something you should develop. And idle chatter is something you have to be extremely mindful now. Now we know that to speak falsely is wrongdoing. We are aware, and it's something that we feel it is wrong to do so. So is it for divisive speech? So is it for harsh speech that we might feel it is a wrong thing, it is unwholesome? But that is not the case when you speak idle chatter. When you speak useless words, futile words, you don't quite feel that same way. But you have to understand that is also unwholesome. That is something you should refrain from, because it's the same. The results, the repercussions, the consequences are the same, because it is an evil deed. It is wrongdoing. It is an unwholesome thing to speak idly. So you have to speak only things. Actually, correct speech means, in this sense, you have to speak of the Dhamma. And of course, you have to speak day to day, in the day-to-day life, for things to get done. But Basically, when you right speech means talking the Dhamma, discussing Dhamma. That's right speech. Then you have to practice right action. What is right action? You have to abstain from killing living beings. You have to abstain from stealing. You have to abstain from sexual misconduct. With regard to monks' lives, because we are talking here the Patimokka, the training of the monk's life is quite different. Say a monk cannot involve himself in killing a living being in any form, even if it's a embryo in the womb, and if you in some way urge or encourage that, and because of that encouragement, the encouragement that life is lost, then you are defeated. You say parajika. That means then you are no longer a monk. And with regard to say stealing, if you steal something, a monk, then you are defeated. You are no longer a monk. You cannot be among the high ordinate monks. You are defeated. And with regard to sexual misconduct, if you, at least Buddha said, if you were to engage in sexual misconduct with a female animal, because it has happened in the time of the Buddha, then again you lose your monk life. You are not a monk any longer. You cannot live among the high ordained monks, said the Buddha. So with regard to stealing, say, you have to understand, like if you understand these things, then you have growing confidence of the monks, the Sangha. So say there is a valuable object on the table. For a monk, if he thinks, okay, I want to steal this object, and with that thought in his mind, if he touches that object, just by touching that object, it is called a dukula. Dukula means it is something you should not do. Okay, it is something you should not do. If you touch, with the thought of stealing, just by touching that object, you have broken a precept. Then you have to go confess to a monk. Then if you move the object, it becomes a serious offense. Just by moving it, it becomes a serious offense. Then again you have to go confess. And if you actually lift the object, the moment you lift it with the intention to steal, you are no longer a monk. You have lost your monkhood. You can't be with high ordained monks. It's parajika, it's a defeat. So, and also with regard to all things connected with sexual activities, a monk should refrain. So, if anything, actually, with regard to, there are 13, grave offenses. If a monk commits any one of these grave offenses, you have to go among the monks and tell, okay, it's grave offense, so it's not easy to purify yourself from a grave offense. You have to go to the Sangha and tell, I have done so and so. Then the monks will say, okay, you have to certain disciplinary requirements you have to complete within. It is one grave offense, it's like we say manat. For 6 days you have to complete these things, like you can't accept veneration and respect from other monks. Even if you are a senior monk, you can't accept such gestures of respect until you have purified yourself. And there are certain chores you have to do within that period. And you have to confess to every monk in the monastery twice daily. I have done this wrong thing. So if there's 30 monks, you should tell all 30 monks, I have wronged in this way, in the morning and on the evening, twice daily. And if you miss even one monk, you forget to do it, the confession to even one monk, then you lose that day. So again, you have to do that day again. And if you hide the offense, say for 1 day, 2 days, 3 weeks, then it's added to the 6 days. So if you hide the offense for 1 year, then you have to go through this disciplinary process for 1 year. And if you do a mistake in that during that one period, again you break the same precept, a grave offense, then it is taken to the beginning, like you have to do it over once again. So see how difficult it is to keep the precept properly. And you have to confess to every monk, I have done this wrong deed. Likewise, then once you are completed, then you accept to the Sangha as a purified monk. Then only you can uh, even talk amiably, like even the natural normal talk is prohibited. You can only talk when you are talking to. The amiable talk you cannot do, like you don't just talk of things. You can't live in the under the same roof. You are given a separate kuti. You have to stay away from the monks in whatever kuti the monks would give. You can't sleep under the same roof when you have run in this way. So all this process is there to discipline the monk, to instill himself respect for the virtue. So in this way, the Patimokkha is quite different. So you have to grow in confidence, in faith toward the Sangha, the respect you have to Sangha, and you should think, okay, I have only 5 precepts to keep. Why can't I arouse energy, effort to keep these 5 precepts? Why can't I correct myself? You can. Because the monks are also humans. So what are you? So it is about how much you are committed to the practice. So that is right action. Then right livelihood. Okay. So here it says, with regard to right livelihood, we should understand that anumattesu vajjesu bhayadassavi. That means when you keep precepts, you have to see fear in the slightest fault. Even the slightest fault you should refrain from. That is how the Buddha said. Should not do anything, even small, that is wrong. So that is rightly how I remember there is case. See how pure the livelihood of the Arahants were. You know, there was a case where a Thera, I think his was Kulupaga Tissa Thera, okay? This Tissa Thera, he was an Arahant. Okay. So he would frequently visit the same household of a gem polisher. He would daily go to that particular house for alms. It was habit. So one day when this Thero went to this gem polisher's house, when he was just when he got there, a messenger from King Pasenadi Kosala came with a ruby to be polished. Okay, it was a rough ruby. It has to be cut and polished to make to gem. So it was given to this person, the gem polisher. He took, like at that moment, he was cutting some meat, and there was blood in his hand. With this bloody hands, he touched the ruby and kept it aside. And for some reason, he had to go inside to the house. At that moment, there was a pet, a bird like Kosali in Sinhala ways. I don't know what's the English term. Maybe a type of a crane that was in the house as a pet. They reared it as pet. So this pet came here, and because there was blood in the ruby that was kept aside, it came there and it swallowed the ruby. The pet bird swallowed the ruby. So when the gem polisher came out of the house, the ruby is missing. He looks all over the place, and the only person there is the Arahant. And he began to doubt whether this monk, because he doesn't know this is an Arahant, whether this monk stole my ruby. And he questions the Arahant. Did you take the ruby? Did you steal it? But the venerable monk, the Arahant Tissa, he remained silent. Because he saw what happened. If he said that bird swallowed the ruby, he know definitely this person might kill this animal and take the ruby out. So he remains silent. He didn't utter a word. So that person said, oh, definitely this monk has done this because he is not saying anything. Of course, he is guilty of this crime. And he said, okay, if you are not going to speak, I will make you speak. He took a rope and tied it around the monk's head and pulled hard until blood gushed out of his nose. And when blood clot span out of his nose and fell on the floor, that bird came there and it pecked on the blood to taste the blood. And that the James police was so annoyed at that moment, he kicked away the animal, the bird, and it died there on the spot. Then the venerable Tissa Thero, then he spoke, he said, look, please see whether that animal is dead. So then that person, why do you care that whether it's alive or not? Why do you care? He said, no, just check. So he checked and said, yes, the bird is dead. Then he said, okay, now I will tell you. That bird swallowed the ruby. I didn't tell of this before to you because I know definitely you would kill the animal. So I didn't want to be a part of a killing of a being. That is why I didn't tell you. So he cut it open, the animal, the bird, and took the ruby. Of course, he went to Nire. He went to hell because of that deed. And the monk, because he was an arahant, he attained parinibbana. And the bird was reborn as a child in the same home, in the womb of the mother, his wife of the gem police. And the wife of the gem police, he didn't doubt the arahant. He said she had faith because they had given dana to the arahant for many days, many months. And she didn't doubt like a husband. She had faith in the Sangha, confidence in the Sangha. Therefore, she was reborn in the Devas world, whereas her husband went to hell. The Arahant, of course, he attained Parinibbana. So this is the livelihood, the purity of the monk's life. And also the case of Venerable Arahant Sariputta, in that case, Venerable Arahant Sariputta, there was a time when he got a stomach ache. And Arahant Moggallana asked Venerable Sariputta, do you get this stomach ache even when you lay alive? Yes, he said, answered, yes, I do get this stomach ache even when I was a lay person, but then my mother prepares this special herbal soup and that actually cures the ailment. Then Arahant Moggallana replied, okay, you are a very meritorious monk. Surely when I go to Pindapata tomorrow on the alms round, I will definitely get this medicine that you are seeking, this particular soup, and then I will bring it to you. This conversation among these two Arahants, Venerable Arahant Sariputta and Moggallana, was overheard by a certain non-human. And it wanted to make this happen. The non-human wanted to make this happen. So it possessed a child of a lord's house, a child, a lady, a young girl, and then began to talk to the family. Says, you are meant to prepare this soup using these herbs and all that, and you have to offer this to Arahant Moggallana tomorrow when he comes to arms. If you do not do, if you do not do so, I will not leave this person. He will have to suffer because he is possessing their daughter now. So they had to prepare it. So they prepared this, and next day, Arahant Moggallana, when he came to arms, they offered this herbal soup, and Arahant Moggallana took the portion to Venerable Arahant Sariputta and offered this. You are very fortunate, you are very meritorious. I got just what you wanted, just the thing you asked for, and offered this to Venerable Arahant Sariputta. But Arahant Sariputta is very wise. He thought, look, it is only the two of us who discuss this matter. How come I get the same thing I want tomorrow? Even in our case, you might think, oh yes, indeed I am very meritorious. Definitely it's my merits that have gained me this. That's what we would think. But see the humility of Venerable Arahant Sariputta. There is no way that I could get the same thing I wanted. So definitely there is the intervention of a non-human here. Then a person surely has been uh, put through great trouble for this to be prepared. Someone has suffered for this. I'm not going to have this. He doesn't tell any of this. He just tells Venerable Arhan Moggallana, please cast this. I'm not going to have it. And Venerable Arhat Moggallana, he doesn't question the words of Sariputta. He just goes to a side and turns the ball upside down, and the contents are dropped. The moment the soup is poured out of the bowl, the stomach ache was cured then and there, and never in the life of Arhat Sariputta again did that ache arise again. So it was cured once and forever. Because of what? The right livelihood of Arhan Sariputta. This is the right livelihood of this, the Bhikkhu Sangha. So in this way, Patimokka Sangara Sangura Hoti, the monks, the bhikkhus practice right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Then what does the bhikkhu has to practice? And here it is very important that we should remember the slightest fault. You don't do the slightest wrongdoing when you keep the precepts. I also remember there is an incident where monks goes for the alms round, and there after the alms round he enters the forest. That is where he normally dwells, and in the forest there is a pond, and the monk thought, okay, I will have a wash, and he goes into the water, and after bathing in the pond, there was a very beautiful flower in the middle of the pond, and he smells this flower, and the moment he smells the flower, near the pond, beside the pond, there was a tree. In this tree, there was a tree dwelling Deva. This Deva saw this and thought, okay, I have to arouse mindfulness in this monk, because he gave into the pleasure of the smell of the flower. So this Deva talks to the monk and accuses him, you are a thief. Monk, you are a thief. Then the monk asked the tree dwelling Deva, why do you accuse me as a thief? What did I steal? So the Deva said, you stole scent. You stole the scent of the flower. So that's the accusation. Okay, it's like normally it's like unbelievable to accuse a person of stealing a smell. So the monk says, why do you accuse me in that way? I didn't break them, I didn't pluck the flower. I just smell the scent of it just as it is. Then the Deva said, look, you know the nannies are the nannies person, like they take care of children. Just as a nanny's clothes are always dirty because the child, the infant, they defecate and urinate, so they are always dirty. So the Deva said, just like a nanny's clothes are always dirty, there are people, there are certain uh, ascetics who live in this forest. They have very dirty lives. Their lives are soiled, they are polluted, and they also come to this pond, and they not only they pluck these flowers, they uproot these weeds, and as well they eat the yams of these things. But I don't mind when they do, because their lives are spoiled, they are dirty, just like a nanny's clothes. And extra bit of, like, say if there's extra bit of a urine or defecation in a nanny's cloth, is not something, because the cloth is dirty. That's the nature of the cloth. But that is not the way a monk's life. A monk's life is very pure, like a pure white cloth. It's impeccable. So when you do even the slightest wrong, it's a huge thing. That is why I said, even when you were to smell the scent of that flower, that is not a slight fault, that is a theft. That is why I accused you in this manner, to arouse mindfulness in you, said the Deva. So in this way, we have to have the slightest, see the wrong in the slightest of actions. You have to fear the slightest of wrongdoing, said the Buddha. So that is the life a monk lives when he practices virtue. Then the next aspect is, how does a noble disciple guard the doors of his sense faculties? So then a monk, a training monk, first is he has to keep his precepts properly, right speech and right action and right livelihood. Then he has to restrain his senses. How does he does that? Now say there is the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So when he sees the form with regard to the eye, this is how he disciplines himself, how he restrains himself. Chakkuna rupang diswa. When seen a form with the eye, na nimittang gahi hoti. That means a noble disciple does not grasp at its sign or features. Then that what does this mean? When you see a form, there are the signs of that form and the features of that form. You should not cling to them. If you cling to the signs and features of that form again and again, you are reminded of those signs and features. See, you see a very handsome girl or a beautiful boy, handsome boy or a girl, beautiful girl, attractive girl or boy, then you remember certain signs and features. Maybe the hair, maybe the teeth, the smile, the way he or she walked or talked. These are all what? The talk is the sounds, okay? The what you see, they are signs and features. Once you grasp these signs and features, again and again your mind wanders. Mental exploration is there. The lingering is there, as we learned before. That happens when you grasp to the signs and feature. It's the same with the sounds. Say in the day, a moment, say throughout your day when you work or whatever, say you are scolded, you are spoken roughly to. And then if you do not have sense restraint, that pollutes your mind. And again, because you are scolded only one time during the day. But if you do not have sense restraint, again and again you are reminded of that. Because we have grasped that nimitta, the sign or feature, the sound that you heard. It's a sound. You know, when someone calls or talk to you badly, just the sound, ear consciousness, then the unification of these, the contact. It is a momentary arising of unpleasant feeling. But if you don't restrain your senses, then your mind is clouded. Mind is sullied with that defilement. That is why Buddha says the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body has mind has recourse in the mind. And the mind has recourse in mindfulness. So the mindfulness is the gatekeeper here. Mindfulness is the gatekeeper. So every moment, all the time, you have to be mindful. You have to mindfully restrain the six senses. And you decide mindfully what to take in and what to not take in. Just like a gatekeeper of a frontier fortress decides the friendlies should be taken in, the enemies should be kept at bay. So in that way, you protect the inhabitants of the frontier fortress, the people living inside. Likewise, if you want to protect your mind from defilements, if you want to keep your mind pure, if you want to purify your mind, definitely you have to restrain your six senses. You do so by being mindful. When you interact with the outer world through the six senses, if you are able to be mindful, then you will not let them affect you in a way that your mind is defiled. Okay? So you don't grasp to signs and features. Even you smell something, when you taste something. If you grasp to that sign of feature, then you want to have it again and again. Whatever you had, a delicious thing you had eaten. And also the thoughts. If you grasp to them again and again, your mind wanders among those thoughts. And then it can cause you happiness or suffering. Again and again. And ultimately, it causes great suffering. Because it is just a fleeting thought. A momentary pleasure. But that pleasure is impermanent. If you grasp that pleasure, surely you will suffer because it is going to change. It is not going to last forever. So you have to, in this way, restrain your senses. If you don't restrain your senses, what happens? You can't keep your precepts. You can't protect your precepts. Because the precepts get broken when your mind is overwhelmed by either greed, anger, or delusion. The mind is overwhelmed by greed, anger, and delusion when your six senses are not restrained. If you see something, say you attack to a certain person and you are overwhelmed with lust, that is greed, then you will maybe engage in sexual misconduct. And you come across something that belongs to someone else and you feel, I want to have that. That is greed. You steal it. You couldn't restrain your senses. Okay? In this way, you break the precept when there is no sense restraint. So you have the sense restraint and the keeping the precepts. These things go hand in hand. They complement each other. If you don't practice sense restraint, you can't keep the precepts. If you're not keeping the precept, then you will not be willing to restrain your senses. So you have to have both. That is why that is the second thing a trainee should practice. That is restraint of the six senses. And there's a very beautiful simile for this. I think the name of the sutta is Chappanak Sutta. Buddha describes of six animals. Six animals with different habitats and different feeding grounds. What are the six animals? There is a crocodile, there is a bird, a monkey, then there is a jackal, and there is a dog, and there is a snake. So you see six animals with different feeding grounds, different habitats. So what you do is you tie each of these six animals with a rope, and the six ropes are tied together. They are knotted together. And then you let go. So the snake could pull towards the anthill because that's where it lives. The crocodile would pull towards the river, the water. The monkey would pull towards the forest because it lives up in trees. It would pull in that direction. The jackal would pull towards the charnel grounds. And the dog pulls towards the village. The bird pulls towards the sky. So at any given moment, out of these six animals, one animal would be more powerful and all of them will be pulled towards that direction. Likewise, in any given moment, one out of these six senses, because these six senses in the same way are drawn to forms, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles, and mind objects. We are pulled towards them because these six senses have different feeding grounds. And they are drawn to each of these feeding grounds. And at any given moment, one sense becomes more powerful and it overwhelms, it overrides the other senses, and you are drawn to either form or sound, taste, smell, or tangible or mind object. That's what happens to us. So Buddha says, so that's the simile. So then what you do in the simile is say, next, these six animals, the knots, without tying them together, knotting them together, you tie them to a post, a strong post. And now these six animals again, they pull in different directions, but they are tied to a post and they get tired and they have to dwell by the post, whether they like it or not. In the same way, Buddha said, if you practice mindfulness based on the body, mindfulness of the body, kaya anupassana, kaya gata sati actually, mindfulness of the body, then just like your mind, just like the six animals, they can't pull towards any direction. They have to stay by the pole, by the post. The six senses also, they are not drawn to the six external sense bases because mindfulness is there. Mindfulness based of body is there. So your focus is with the body, not with the forms, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles, or mind object. You are always mindful of your body, the posture of the body. See, then when your mind is with the body, the mind is not sullied with the defilements. Because this mind is like a madhouse of activity again and again. There's a lot of information coming through. You have to filter this information with mindfulness, just as the wise gatekeeper. Then you can keep your mind clean. Then it is a place that where the hindrances are not fueled. So the five hindrances loses is their nourishment, their food. So they become weak. And then when you sit for meditation, meditation becomes easy. Why? The hindrances are subdued. They are not strong. They have lost their nourishment because of what? Sense restraint and mindfulness. So in this way, a disciple has to practice sense restraint. Virtue, second, sense restraint. Third aspect is, how is the noble disciple be moderate in eating? You have to be moderate in eating. So here Buddha says in this way, it is this way, here reflecting wisely. A noble disciple does not take food to enhance physical strength, never davaya. You don't consume food to enhance your physical strength, or for amusement, namadaya, nor for the sake of physical beauty, namandanaya, and attractiveness, navibhusanaya. So you don't seek physical strength, amusement, beauty, or attractiveness through food. Normally, that is why people consume. They are always concerned about what they eat because they want to have the best health possible, best physical strength, physical aspects. They are very focused. And people, when you meet, what they say normally is, you look lean, you don't look well. Like that's what people say. They are so focused on the attractiveness, beauty of this body. And they consume food accordingly. And they also consume food for amusement. That is why we have all these chains of hotels, 5-star, 7-star, whatever. So many diversity with regard to food because it's there for amusement. But with regard to a trainee, this is how a trainee considers the food. I shall terminate all pain without arousing new pain and practice the noble path in comfort. Because if you are hungry, that is pain. And you can't practice. You need the mental and physical state that is we get from the food to practice, to live in comfort, not discomfort. And you can just commit to the practice. For that you need food. So that is the only reason why a monk would consume food. Even in your case, you should consume food. So if you do so, you do not give in to addiction, because we are addicted to food, and we are prone to gluttony. That happens when you do not know why you should consume. So the trainee consumed food because of a reason. So we have to understand consuming food, like it doesn't mean you have to eat little. Because there is an instance when one person came to the Buddha and he said, Buddha, I am very pleased and impressed of you. So Buddha asked, why are you pleased and impressed of me? Then he said, because you eat very little. That was his answer. Buddha said, if that is the reason you are impressed and pleased with me, then that is not the case, because there are disciples of myself, my disciples, who eat very little, maybe a handful, like just a spoonful per day, or maybe 2 spoons. But in my case, there are days I have food that my full half of my arm bowl, or the full arms bowl. That much I eat for a day. Buddha said there are certain days, because that is not a yardstick, said the Buddha, to be impressed of the Buddha. So we see that mattanyu, so eating wisely, consuming food wisely doesn't mean you have to eat little. It should be your focus on why you consume food. You have to consume food so just you can abide peacefully without discomfort, so you can practice the path. That is why you should consume food. Then fourth is, and how is the noble disciple devoted to wakefulness? Then you have to give up sleep. Like, you should not give in to sleep, because sleep is something we all love. We all find comfort in sleep. Okay, but in the practice, it is a hindrance. Thina midda, it's an hindrance. So, how does a disciple devote himself to wakefulness? Buddha says, here during the day, while walking back and forth and sitting, a noble disciple purifies his mind of unwholesome states. The 5 hindrances, actually. The disciple purifies the mind of the 5 hindrances throughout the day. And in the first watch of the night, that is from, say, in the evening from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. or 11 p.m., that is the first watch of the night. While again he practiced meditation. How? Walking meditation and sitting meditation alternatively, without stopping. And he purifies his mind of the 5 hindrances. Then in the middle watch of the night, that is from 11 at night to, say, 2 a.m., he lies down in the lion's posture with the one foot all up in the other, mindful and fully aware. After noting in his mind, I will arise in this time, at this time, in the morning. And he arises when, in the third watch of the night, that is, he arises at 2 a.m. So in the time of the Buddha, they slept from only 11 to 12 a.m., the bhikkhus. That is the third watch of the night. Now, then after rising, it's the third watch. That is 2 a.m. to, say, 6 a.m. in the morning. That is the third watch. Again, they practice meditation, sitting meditation and walking meditation alternatively. If you do alternatively, in your case, you can meditate throughout the day. You just have to do it alternatively. You do a walking meditation, say 15 minutes, then you sit for 30. Again, you walk, meditate for 15 minutes, then you sit for 30. You can continue it. So likewise, then what happens is you subdue the hindrances. You purify the mind of the hindrances. So in this way, this is how a noble disciple is devoted to wakefulness, said the Buddha. So because we find in the Theragata of Arhat Anuruddha, the Theragata of the Anuruddha Arhat, it says he has not, the venerable monk Bhikkhu Anuruddha has not slept for 25 years. He has not slept for 25 years. See how amazing the teachings of the Buddha. It is because of the teachings of the Buddha they were able to do this. They have not slept for, he has not slept for 25 years. Imagine nowadays, if a person doesn't lose a sleep for 3 or 4 days, they become insane. But once you have freed your mind of the defilements, because we need sleeps, everyone needs sleep for mental rest, also physical rest. But you can experience for yourself, the more you meditate, the less you need to sleep. Because the mental stress is there because of the 5 hindrances. When you meditate, the hindrances are subdued. When the hindrances are subdued, what happens? When the hindrances are subdued, then the mind is at rest. When the mind is rested, if you have, say, 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep, that's enough. When you wake up, you feel refreshed. If the hindrances are not controlled, there is chaos in the mind. And no matter how many hours you sleep, still when you get up, there's a hangover. So that is why it is said that a noble disciple, here the fourth aspect is he should be devoted to wakefulness. Then it is discussed the 7 qualities of a noble disciple. I don't know how much time do we have, Arjuna?
We still have some time, Swami. I think.
Mm, so there's so much to cover more. How should we take? Maybe we'll try to cover as much as possible. Okay.
Yes, something.
So then we'll discuss the 7 qualities now. And how does the noble disciple possess 7 good qualities? Here, a noble disciple has faith. So that is the first quality, saddha. Faith is you have to believe in the teachings of the Buddha. So believing in the teachings of the Buddha means when you read the sutta, you come across the qualities of the Buddha. Because Buddha taught us his qualities. No, he's an arahant. He has eradicated his mind of all the defilement. Samma Sambuddha. He realized this Dhamma on his own. Vijjacharana Sampanna. So he's got true knowledge and conduct. Then Sugato. No, Vijjacharana Sampanna Sugato. Sugata means he found the Noble Eightfold Path and he completed the Noble Eightfold Path and attained Nibbana. Lokavidu, he is the knower of all the being. He is the knower of there was no world that he didn't know of. He realized all the worlds, how these worlds come to be, how beings are born these worlds, and his teachings allowed you to be free from all these worlds. That is why he is called Lokavidu or knower of all the worlds. Then Anuttara Purusha Dhammasarati, the peerless tamer of peoples to be tamed. Satta Deva Manusana. He is the teacher of gods and humans. And Buddha is that the teachings he realized, the Four Noble Truths, he was able to teach others. Only Buddha is capable of that. Pacheka Buddhas can't do that. So that is like a Buddha. Bhagava means he's blessed. He's blessed to have these unique qualities, all these unique qualities. Likewise, you have to have confidence in these qualities of the Buddha. And when you study these two suttas, it is of these qualities that you come across again and again. How he tames his disciples, how he teaches both gods and humans, how remarkable his realization is, how skilled he is in teaching the Four Noble Truths in various means and manners. So then you grow in confidence towards the Buddha. That is Saddha. Next thing is what we call in Pali Hirima. Hirima means there should be shame for moral debt, shame of misconduct, that is by body, speech, and mind. You should be ashamed of doing unwholesome deed. You should think of your status as a human. Say you may be a father, a mother, a older brother, a teacher, a person of some personal social standing, a respected person, a respectful person. So in this way, you have to think of your position in the social life and think it is not proper for me to act in this way, to do this shameful conduct. So in this way, you have to think of yourself and you have to arouse shamefulness towards wrong deeds and refrain from doing these things. And there is a sutta called the Adipataya Sutta where Buddha asked the monks, Attadipataya, think of yourself and think of whether it's proper for you to having given up of all the sensual pleasures in the lay life and having taken up this monk's life, dwelling in robes to give in to these defilements, this unwholesome state of the mind. Is it good? Think in this manner and abandon. And Lokadipati. And think of the devas. There are people, there are other monks that actually can see your mind. There are monks who have developed the monks, and they have divine states that where you can read your minds. And there are devas. The devas can read your minds. They can see your mind, their thoughts, and they see your defilements. So in this way, you have to restrain yourself. How shameful it is if the devas see my thoughts, if the other monks who have developed their mind see my thoughts. Therefore, I should abandon these shameful thoughts. Likewise, they abandon the unwholesome. So Buddha asked to think in this way. And also Dhammadipataya, think that you have given up the lay life and become a monk, and you live among the Sangha who are very virtuous, who practice good qualities. So living in among this Sangha, it is not proper for me to harbor such unwholesome thoughts. And thinking in this manner, abandon the unwholesome, said the Buddha. So in this way, you should also contemplate uh, according to the teachings of the Buddha and be shameful of wrongdoings, misconduct by body, speech, and mind. And you should be ashamed of engaging in evil, unwholesome deeds. Then that is Hirima. Then we discuss Saddha. Then we discuss shame of wrongdoing. Then Ottappa. Ottappa is the fear of wrongdoing. You should fear wrongdoing. What is to you should fear to do misconduct by body, speech, and by mind. Why? Because if you do bad, evil deeds, then there are the consequences that you have to suffer. Not anyone else, not your friends, relatives, parents. You have to suffer for the evil deeds you do, the wrongdoings. Because Buddha said, whatever deed you do intentionally, surely there will be the consequences. There is no running away from karma. So that is why you have to keep the five precepts. Buddha, that is why he encouraged you to keep the five precepts, because Buddha knew the consequences of the five precepts if you break the five precepts. That is why you should have fear of wrongdoing. That is the quality you should instill in yourself. If you don't have that fear, there is no limit to the wrong things you can do in this world. So you should have both shame and fear of wrongdoing. So next is Bahusuto Honti. He is learned. He has learned much, remembers what he has learned. This is very important. Okay, to learn, to remember what you learn, and consolidate what he has. That's why we say Sutta Sannicha. You have to gather the Dhamma knowledge. You have to collect the knowledge of the Dhamma. You have to read many suttas and acquire, and you have to retain this. Retention is very important. You have to accumulate the knowledge of the Dhamma. Such teachings as are good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. What is good in the what is the beginning, what is the middle, and what is the end? It's virtue, samadhi. Virtue is the beginning, samadhi, concentration is the middle, end is panya. With the right meaning and phrasing, and affirm a holy life that is utterly perfect and pure. Such teachings as these he has learned much of, remember, recited verbally, investigated with the mind, and penetrated well by view. So you have to retain, you have to contemplate, you have to understand, and you have to see it with wisdom. The knowledge, the Dhamma, knowledge of the Dhamma, you acquire. So this is what it means to be Bhausuto, to be a learned person, to acquire the knowledge of the Dhamma. Next is you have to have Virya. He is energetic in abandoning unwholesome states and in undertaking unwholesome states. He is steadfast, firm in striving and not remissing developing a wholesome state. That means you are always committed in the practice to abandon the unwholesome and develop the wholesome. What are wholesome things you have to develop? What we discussed: virtue, sense restraint, mindfulness, samadhi, all these things, all the tenets of the Noble Eightfold Path are kusal, are wholesome things you have to develop in your life as a trainee. So you have to be committed to it. Committed means always there has to be the effort, because the effort is also impermanent. That is why we say Arambaka Dhatu, like again and again you have to arouse effort. You should not give up your effort. So that is the quality you should have. energetic. You should be energetic in abandoning the unwholesome and developing the wholesome. Then you should have satima. Satima is mindfulness. It says here, he possesses the highest mindfulness and skill. He recalls and recollects what was done long ago and spoken long. When you are mindfulness, you can recollect throughout the day what you've been doing. If you've been mindful throughout the day, then again and again you can recollect what you've been doing. When you do this for a long time, you can recollect things you have done years before very easily because of mindfulness. So in this way, you have to practice mindfulness based on the four bases of mindfulness. And then you have to be wise. What is wisdom here? He is wise, he possesses wisdom regarding to rise and disappearance. What is the rise and the disappearance? You have to see the arising and the cessation. You have to see the arising and the cessation of what? The form. You should see the form. It arises because of the four elements. When the four elements cease, then the form ceases. Feeling, feeling arises because of contact. When the contact ceases, feeling ceases. Then what? Perception again arises because of contact. When contact ceases, perception ceases. Then volition again arises because of contact. When contact ceases, volition ceases. Then consciousness. Consciousness arises because of name and form. When name and form ceases, consciousness ceases. In this way, you have to see, then there is the cause, there is the result. When the cause ceases, then the result ceases. So you have to, in this manner, see the arising and ceasing. That is called Udayattagami Panya. The ability to see this arising and ceasing. That is a quality you should have. Then what? Then once you have these 7 qualities, now we discuss. Yeah, we discuss 7 qualities here. Then having these qualities, possessing these qualities, together with the 4 things we discussed in the beginning, the noble disciple then he has to attain the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, and fourth jhana. Because when he has developed these qualities to this point, he can attain the jhanas because his mind is not overwhelmed by the 5 hindrances. The hindrances are weak in his mind, and he can easily develop the 4 jhanas, the first jhana, second jhana, and third and fourth jhanas. So then, now what have we learned up to this point? That you are supposed to first keep your precepts, then you are supposed to guard your senses, then you have to be moderate in your eating, you should be devoted to your wakefulness, and then you have to possess the 7 qualities we discussed: saddha, then hiri ottappa, that is faith in the Buddha has to be there, shame and fear of wrongdoing should be there, then you should have a good dhamma knowledge, then you should have mindfulness, then you should have wisdom. Okay, all these 7 qualities you should possess, and then you can develop the 4 jhanas. And here it says, when a person has developed to this point, he is like an unspoiled egg. He is capable of breaking out, capable of enlightenment, capable of attaining his the supreme security from God. Like he is able to be free from all the defilements. And Buddha gives a simile here. Where Ananda Sayinasa says a simile that was again taught by the Buddha before. Suppose there were a hen with 8 or 10 or 12 eggs, which she had covered, incubated, and nurtured properly. Even though she did not wish, oh, that my chicks might pierce these cells with the points of their claws and beaks and hatch out safely. Yet the chicks are capable of piercing their cells with the points of their claws and coming out. Why? Because he has done what is need to be done. The hen has incubated and nurtured and covered the eggs. So likewise, there are things you have to practice. What we learned here, the 7 qualities, First, you have to be virtuous, then you have to be the sense restraint, then you have to have the be moderate in eating. All these four qualities, and then the seven qualities we discussed, you have to develop and practice in your life. When you do so, then you are not a spoiled egg. Gradually, you mature as a person, and you are able to break out of the cell, which is ignorance. And once you do, then what happens? Then you can attain the Pubbe Nivasanussati Jnana. That is the ability to recollect manifold past lives, many years, many years even, you can recollect. So that is the knowledge you acquire. Pubbe Nivasanussati Jnana. So then again, you can then achieve the second Vijja we call this direct knowledge of Vijja. That is Chutupapata Jnana. Based upon that same supreme mindfulness, the Upekka you find in the fourth jhana, because once you develop to the fourth jhana, there's a state of equanimity that makes the mind wieldy, and you can use it as a tool to do whatever you desire. In this case, you can acquire the Chutupapata Jnana. That is with the divine mind, which is purified and surpasses the human, you can see beings passing away and reappearing. That they pass away from this life and they are born in hell world, animal world, the ghost world, or the devas world, or the Brahman world. All this you can see. That is called Chatupapada Jnana. First is Pubbena Nivasusanyana. That is the first breaking out, like that of hang sticks from their cells. That's the first breaking out. Second breaking out of the cell is acquiring the attaining the Chutupapata Jnana, the ability to see how the beings pass away from one light to the other. Then the third breaking out from the cell is that you can clearly see all the defilements, the taints in your mind clearly, and you can get rid of all of them and purify your mind of all the defilements and attain Arhat. That is called Asavakka Jnana, the knowledge of destroying all the defilements, the taints, and purifying your mind. So in this way, the disciple completes the training. So there is the virtue, then the restraint of the senses we discussed, then you have to be moderate in the eating, you have to be devoted to the wakefulness, then you have to practice the seven qualities, then 7 plus 4, 11. Then you have to develop the 4 jhanas, 11 plus 4, 15. So they are called all charana dhamma, conduct, the way you should conduct your life. Once you develop to this point, you have the charana. Then Vijja means the 3 realizations. Pubbē nivāsunussati jnana, Chutupapata jnana, and Asavakka jnana. They are knowledge. So then you possess true knowledge and conduct. These are what we call Vijja Charana. True knowledge and conduct. So here in the Sutta it says, this noble disciple is in this way said to be perfect in true knowledge, perfect in conduct, perfect in true knowledge and conduct. And this stanza was uttered by the Brahma Sanankumara. What the Brahma had said once, so Anand Swayanga said, once the Brahma Sanankumara said in this manner, the noble clan is held to be the best of people as to lineage, but best of gods and human is one perfect in true knowledge and conduct. So among all clansmen, the Sakyan clan is regarded as the supreme. Likewise, among all gods and humans, the Buddha, the Tathagata, and the disciples of the Buddha, they are the highest beings. Why? Because they possess true knowledge and conduct. These qualities we learned in the Sutta. Only the Buddha and the Arhants possess all these qualities. And Venerable Ananda Swayanga says, now that stanza was well sung by the Brahma Sanankumar. It was well said, not ill said. It's not a wrongful comment, it's a right comment. It's well spoken, not ill spoken. It has a meaning and it is not meaningless. And it was approved by the Blessed One. It is a comment that was approved by the Blessed One. So the Buddha was all the time mindfully listening to this Dhamma talk by Venerable Ananda Swamingasa. So Buddha rises, saying, good, Ananda. It is good that you have spoken to the Sakyas of Kapilavatthu about the the training of the disciple, the practice of the disciple. It is good that you taught them this. So in this way, the Buddha approved the teachings, the Dhamma talk given by Venerable Ananda Swamingas, and the Sakyas of Kapilavatthu were satisfied and delighted in Venerable Ananda Swamingas' words. So I hope you also were delighted and satisfied to some extent by learning these teachings of the Buddha today. This Dhamma talk by Venerable Ananda Swamingas, which was approved by the Buddha, with the Buddha also said sadhu sadhu and acknowledged, consented to this Dhamma talk. So we also should try to develop these qualities in our life, and also by listening to this Dhamma, learning this Dhamma, we have to grow in confidence. We may not be able to develop these qualities to say this extent in this life, but having faith in the teachings of the Buddha will definitely one day help us to achieve this, because this the path is the same. The past will not change, because the noble eightfold path is the same for every person. One day we have to acquire this quality. One day we have to develop and foster these qualities. And you on your own has to do that. No one else is going to do it for you. No one else can do it for you. No one else can make you do it. Even in the case of the Buddhas, they will only show you the way. You on your own has to tread the path. So may we all have the good fortune to practice these qualities in this life and try to develop the Noble Eightfold Path and realize the Four Noble Truths in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So we shall today now share the merits we have already acquired, myself by teaching the Dhamma, yourself also listening to this Dhamma talk, and may these merits be shared with, we'll first share them with all the Devas and the Brahmas of the world, and may all the Devas and Brahmas increase in heavenly lifespan, beauty, power, and may the Devas also realize the Four Noble Truths in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And also may these merits be shared with all our long lost relatives in this life and also throughout the samsaric journey, and may they too realize, may their past lives, may their lives be happy and free of suffering, and may they soon realize the Four Noble Truths and be free from this woeful samsaric journey. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And may these teachings, may these merits be shared with our teacher. He is the one who actually taught us this Dhamma in a lucid manner so that we can all understand and learn these teachings of the Buddha. So we'll first share this merits with our teacher Pingat Lokusaingas, most venerable Kiribad Guru Jnanananda Thero, and may he too realize the Four Noble Truths in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And may also these merits be shared with all the monks of the Mahavajana Buddhist monastery, the Anagarika monks, and the ordination aspirants. And may they all be well and happy and realize the Four Noble Truths in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And also may these merits be for all of us, our parents, our relatives, our loved ones, our friends, and may we all have the good fortune to acquire more merits in this Buddha's dispensation and have a rebirth, a good birth in the heavenly worlds, and also realize the Four Noble Truths in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.